This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Hey guys, Jay here. Welcome to Models Memories Weekly, episode 153. Models Memories is a show about nothing and is filmed in front of a live studio audience. This is a show where we're talking about painting, modeling, and warming experiences from the week. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Jay, you put out 3 videos a week. Could I possibly have more to say? Well, I do, and here goes. This week, Games Workshop showed off a new amphibious Kroot and a little bit of teasing for the upcoming Ork release. But first, we all know the one thing standing between you and global domination is a website of your very own, and today's sponsor Squarespace is here to help with that. Squarespace allows anyone to break into website design with easy-to-use features and professional support from start to finish. Looking through the dozens of award-winning templates on offer, you can customize the look and design of your website with ease. And with Squarespace's patented Fluid Engine system, it's a breeze to design a website you can truly call your own. Squarespace's system allows you to stretch your creativity through tools like drag and drop features so you can freestyle your way to the website of your dreams. Or your online storefront. Whether your services are physical, digital, or service-based, selling your wares has never been easier with Squarespace. Squarespace offers a free trial for you to dip your feet into and test the waters. And ready to dive in head first, you can go to squarespace.com/EonsOfBattle or use the link in the description below to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Games Workshop has been drip feeding us the new Kroot army. It's a lot of Kroot models. It really is kind of its own thing. And we all knew this model was coming because it was one of the sneaky little silhouette show-offs they did at the beginning of the year, but the Kroot Calamandra Rider. Calamandra, of course, being a misspelling of salamander, because this model kind of looks like a salamander. It could be argued that this is a Kroot creation or a Kroot creature like the Krootoxes or the Narlochs or the Kroot Hounds, but it seems like it's just a pet or like a tamed animal. And that seems a little bit weird because the Kroot, the whole thing of the Kroot is that their like civilization is based on Kroot. Like they just use themselves for everything. So it's kind of funny, you got these Narloch riders and you got the Kroot Hounds. And then this guy's like, yeah, I found this animal and we're buddies now. It's just the one thing that's not a Kroot. The model itself is pretty cool. It's a dragony monster and it's good. It is very good. It's a cool looking little gecko guy, but it's not Jimmy and Majams. It's not Flim and Maflams. Maybe it's just because I love the old Forge World Narloch riders so much. And kind of the most interesting thing about this guy is his face. The rest of him is very just regular dragony. I feel like it would be really easy to see this model being ridden by like a Age of Sigmar Fire Slayer or something. Like if he's a lava salamander, it would almost work a little bit better than a chameleonic the lizard mount for the Kroot. I don't know, it is interesting that it's a single model unit that's probably gonna have lone operative, I would hope. Do we get any tease? No. We do get a little bit of its long gun, range 36 inches, 1 attack hitting on 3, strength 6, AP -2, damage 3. Strength 6. So this thing's not gonna be able to kill any, I guess it'll kill with precision, yeah, heavy and precision. So you might be able to snipe like certain characters or certain special weapons out of enemy squads early, which could be very useful. You could do really mean stuff, like if you sniped in a Capelite squad, or no, in a Witch squad for Dark Elder, if you snipe the model that has the grenade, that gives them the grenade keyword. But that's like 4D level chess of like, oh, I'm gonna take the grenade strat from you so that I don't have to worry about this charge I wanna do with like something with the vehicle keyword. Like it's not that big a deal, but this model is very interesting. I'm assuming we're getting to the end of the Kroot show-offs because we've gotten so much Kroot goodness. I was really hoping for the Narloch riders and for the Great Narloch. Oh, Games Workshop, you gotta do the Great Narloch. It'll be so big and so expensive, but like, I just want it. I want it so bad. Oh, I love Dawn of War. And the Tau are really, really cool. And the Kroot are really, really cool. The Calamandras is decent. It's a neat little unit. It kind of reminds me of in episode 3, Star Wars episode 3, when Obi-Wan Kenobi is riding the Boga. And it's just like this little, it's kind of the exact same thing. It's a little salamander. Although the Boga looked more like a Kroot than this thing does. I don't think it is based on the actual, like the Kroot shapers, I don't think created the Calamandras. And the idea of it being chameleonic is kind of cool. It'd be interesting to like, you paint your base and then you kind of paint this thing to mostly perfectly match the base. And then you've just got a Kroot in a saddle just floating above the battlefield. But then maybe he paints himself camouflage too. Maybe it all works out perfectly. Yeah, he's got his little bomb stick or he's got a sniper rifle. The bomb stick is a little bit more interesting. There's kind of like units like the Rough Riders where they're a suicidal unit where you're like, I need that tank to go away immediately or else this hemisphere of the board is gonna be really hard to operate in. So maybe he'll be really useful for things like that. Although the Kroot with all of their movement shenanigans look like they're gonna be really, really fun to play with. The most important thing in 40k right now is like movement and positioning. Things that have tons of deep strike or arriving from reserves or just movement shenanigans is incredibly powerful for board control. So I think that if the Kroot just show up in addition to the Tau, I think it's gonna make for a really, really powerful army. I mean, aren't Grey Knights killing it right now? And all they have is teleportation shenanigans? Yeah, good old, the Calamandras, I would give it like, for me, I get why it's super cool. But for me, it's like a C. It's like, it's not like a D where you have to worry about your grade. It's like a C. It's like, yeah, you didn't try that hard, but you're fine. It's all gonna be okay. Oh, the Kroot. But speaking of the Kroot and what's coming next for Warhammer 40,000, it is the Orks. I didn't recognize this, but the eagle-eyed observers, when Games Workshop was showing off that like chart of what codexes are coming out this year, there was one that was like a black question mark, and apparently if you messed with, or like you really looked at that tile and like messed with it a little bit, you could see that it was Dark Angels and Orks. And I am really excited for Orks. I've played Orks a bunch in 10th edition, and they have one game move, and it is turn 2 Wog, just charge everything in close combat because Orc shooting is bad. Orks are weird. They kind of like the worst version of shooting in 40k because you roll so many dice and absolutely nothing happens. Like other games, most other games handle shooting in a very different way, especially army games. Like Star Wars Legion, it doesn't have like strength and toughness, it just has the unique dice results, so you can have a hit or a critical, and then it just happens. There's no like toughness check, there's no armor saving throws. And so, or there are armor saving throws in Star Wars Legion, but you don't roll very many dice. But in 40k, they're like, the Orks are bad at shooting because haha lore, but oh no, now I have to count 87 dice for this one dice roll. Roll them, 16 went through, take them, roll them, take one save, AP zip. And it's like, what was the point? But you have to because you're rolling so many dice, it could be amazing. The way to beat things like with invulnerable saves, loads of dice is super powerful for that. So you always have to roll all your shots as the Orks, but it really doesn't matter. So I would love, with the new Orks they show off, to actually have some things that buff their guns. Also, I wouldn't say no if they wanted to refresh the Luda Burna kit, because I like the Ludas and I like the Burnas, and that kit is really old. And just one other Ork kit that I think has always kind of been a little lacking is the knobs. I like the old boys kit. The knob kit is You get 5 identical torsos, or like somewhat identical torsos, and then you get a bunch of weapon options and like a decent number of head options, but I don't know, I have a whole bunch of knobs and they all look exactly the same. I would really love, and they're kind of small now. You have to use them because of your boys, but I wouldn't mind if they were just a little bit bigger, because they're knobs. They're the true Orks. Like Ork boys, you know, they swarm the battlefield, but the knobs are like the real Orks, like the ones you really gotta worry about. The ones that could probably fight a Space Marine and it would take a minute for them to die. It wouldn't be instantaneous like normal Orks. But some shooty Orks would be really, really cool. And we have seen at least one shooty, actually probably we've seen 2 shooty Orks that Games Workshop is coming out with in the near future. One of them is the new Black Library Ork, Uftak Blackhawk, who is a war boss that has an attack squig, and seemingly attached to the attack squig is a giant like zap gun for the Orks. I really hope it's kind of hit or miss if these Black Library things turn into actual models or not, but considering that he's coming out and the Orks are the next thing to be released, I could totally see them just taking that model and adding it right to the Ork range. The Black Library unique models has definitely been about 50-50 which ones stick around and which ones are just a limited time only thing. I know Ephranel Stern and Kraglin, they ended up sticking around in the Sisters of Battle Codex. Inquisitor Eisenhorn is still available for Agents of the Imperium, but other things like Severina Rain for the Imperial Guard just came and went. Oh, and the two Custodes models, Valerian and Elia, which were, I think, the worst Black Library minis we've ever gotten. Two incredibly just normal, look like the base kit looking Sister of Silence and Adeptus Custodian with head swaps. That was actually, I don't even know if the Sister of Silence had a head swap because they all have the same exact look. They have like the front half of a mask and then they have the ponytail. So really, it was just Alarian who had kind of a dopey looking face. That was the only thing that made them really, really special. But those models just came and went. And it'll be interesting to see if this Ork sticks around. I would love an Ork war boss with a proper shooting weapon. Right now, you can put a combi weapon on an Ork war boss, but you shouldn't because combi weapons ain't what they used to be. I always used to take the combi Scorcha so that, there's only one time per use in 9th edition, or maybe in 8th edition, I think in both, but you would charge up and then right before you charge in, you just flame the unit that you're charging into, and it was so much fun. Now it is 2-shot strength 4. Isn't that fun? Sure, you got anti-infantry 3 up, but it's just not the same. I think the Black Library model would make a great Ork war boss, and the super secret model that we were showing off, just the silhouette at the beginning of the year, was also seemingly some sort of Ork war boss with something that kind of looks like the shock attack gun, or a little bit of the custom force field, or maybe a little bit of both. So that would be really interesting if you could actually add something to a squad to increase the ballistic skill of your Orks so that that giant horde of dice that you're rolling could actually manage to hit something and do some damage. And just hopefully with the Codex and the new detachments, we get some other play styles than just hyper aggressive, charge everything up the board as fast as you possibly can for that turn 2 WOG where everything gets into close combat. And my Mega Knobs get into close combat and they still fail to kill Sean's Lehman Russes. I think it was probably bad dice rolls, but come on. 10 Mega Knobs and a War Boss charging a Lehman Russ and doing like 6 damage to it. It should have died instantly, and it should have exploded, and it should have killed a couple of my Mega Knobs, but it would have been awesome, as opposed to just nothing happens. And then the Lehman Russ Demolisher can just shoot into close comp anyway with its blast weapon, so it ended up pretty much wiping the squad in 2 turns. It was pretty lame. I'm just venting here. We definitely know that about 2 HQ units are on the way for the Orks, which is fine, but I feel like the Orks already have tons and tons and tons of HQ units. Honestly, the Orks are pretty well serviced from Games Workshop. There's always kind of this joke that Games Workshop only cares about the Space Marines, and then, you've got Space Marines, and then you've got the unimportant factions, which is everything else, and particularly the Xenos, but that's really not true about the Orks. The Orks might have like the second biggest range in Warhammer 40k. It is absolutely huge. In like 2016, we got 5 buggies, which is too many buggies, but I love it. I absolutely love it. I have all the buggies. I need to build and paint them because I just love Mad Max so much. Oh, and then those came out in 2016. Mad Max came out in 2015. Coincidence? Probably. But Games Workshop loves the Orks. I love the Orks. I want to see some really, really cool stuff come to the Orks, and I think the detachments would be a really fun way. Probably they're going to give us something that makes Gretchen really, really good, something that makes shooty Orks good, something that makes fighty Orks even better. I'm sure we'll get a Beast Snaga detachment that it actually makes them good at killing vehicles. I know they have like the killing vehicles and killing monsters rules, but it's still just Ork boys pounding on the side of tanks. They really don't bring the oomph to the battle like I really, really want them to. So something to make that better. Ooh, maybe if I had the kill rig or the war rig, because I think that does, I don't know, I need to play around a little bit more with my Orks. My Ork army is a little bit sad. It's one of those, it's kind of like my Necron army where it's kind of like a 2011 Ork army. It's a lot of boys, a lot of knobs, a lot of trucks, and a lot of battle wagons. I don't have a lot of the really cool new things that have come out over the years, but I think that'll be changing hopefully in the somewhat near future. And hey, anything is available on Tabletop Simulator, so I can try out any list I want and it'll be awesome. Actually, speaking of Tabletop Simulator, I don't know if you all saw this Wednesday, but I am working on my Dark Eldar army, and I have played with that army in Tabletop Simulator, and I highly suggest it because I am just bursting with enthusiasm now that I know that I worked so hard on that army list. I read tons and tons of tournament winning lists. I read every single line of the codex and the index, and so I was like, I think this is a good list, and I bought that list and I started putting together that list. But now that I've actually played that list, it's really fun. I like the Dark Eldar a lot. They're very glass hammer, but they hit really hard. They're good in close combat. They've got las cannons for days. It's really, really fun. If you guys want to start an army, I would highly suggest coming up with a list, playing it in Tabletop Simulator, because then you might find out, I maybe don't need the Void Raven Bomber. Maybe it'd be better to spend 230 points on other things. It's kind of the conclusion I came to. The Void Raven Bomber, it showed up, flyers seem to be kind of bad in 10th edition. It showed up turn 2, whiffed all of its shots every single turn, and ended up contributing absolutely nothing to the game. Sean didn't even shoot at it. It didn't matter at all. It didn't even tank some fire for the rest of my army. So I think I would definitely prefer like another raider and another squad of Cavalites at least, or maybe something else pretty cool. Now that the points have gone down on a bunch of stuff, maybe grotesques are still pretty bad, but I own them. So I kind of want to bring them. But man, they're kind of like the Aberrants for Genestealer Cult, although worse. The Aberrants for Genestealer Cult are awesome and way too little in game. They're just these tiny little things that are supposed to be way better than Space Marines. But yeah, Tabletop Simulator is really fun. It doesn't feel the same. It doesn't give you the same emotions as actually pushing your models around the tabletop, but it does. The games do go really, really quick, and it is kind of easier to play the game because you can have the models essentially move for you. You can have the dice rolled for you. If you have to do those super frustrating orc dice rolls where it's like, I need 68 dice, you can just instantly generate 68 dice, instantly roll them, and it'll tell you the results so that you can really quickly do the math of what actually happened during that attack. Tabletop Simulator is really cool. But speaking of things that are really, really cool, Star Wars Shatter Point keeps dragging me back in. Recently, we got shown off some models that are coming out in June, and that is the Bad Batch, which, in my opinion, that almost should have been what the game launched with. It makes sense to launch with like the Clone Wars because the Clone Wars is probably the most popular Star Wars thing that ever existed, but the Bad Batch is really, really fun. The Bad Batch was I almost bought the Lego set, like the big one of their ship that came with all of the gang. It was way too expensive. I'm glad I didn't buy it, but I almost did because I really like the Bad Batch TV show. I've only seen season 1, no spoilers, but it was really, really fun. And the Bad Batch is coming in June. That is like, because Shatterpoint is a skirmish game, so you're meant to bring a small number of models. Small number of models is the Bad Batch. There's also some other stuff coming to Star Wars Shatterpoint a little bit sooner than June. We've got the Mando and the Child, Carl Weathers, and IG-11, which is not IG-88. It's a ever so slightly different assassin droid, not to be confused with the identical assassin droid IG-88. But then he's a good robot. He's a good robot. Star Wars does such a good job of making us root for the robots. I felt bad every single time one of those cream-colored B-1 battle droids got killed by a Jedi. They're just doing their job. They're doing their best. Don't mess with them. The B-1 fan for life. But you know what I'm an even bigger fan of? That's right, our Patreon. Over there, we have a brand new terrain set every single month, and this month we have the Ruined Temple, a collection of mysterious blocks, decrepit walls, and all of the accessories to build the grimdark temple of your dreams. And if you always want to be up to date on the goings-on here at Eons of Battle and be entered into our monthly giveaways, this month we're giving away 1 copy of Dominion, and we're picking 3 followers to receive this month's terrain. Follow the link in the description below to sign up to our newsletter. Oh, Games Workshop. I haven't decided if I want to do a Kroot army or not. I mean, I know I want to do a Kroot army, and I know I don't have time to do a Kroot army, but am I going to do a Kroot army? I already have 16 Kroot, and I have 2 Krootox riders. So really, I would only need to paint like an extra 70 models to get this army up and running. It's no big deal, right? Ah, God, if Games Workshop does the Great Narlock, I might have to. Thanks for watching.